This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain do they worship me. Cardinal de Medina, who was head of the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments some years ago, did indicate that there was, on the level of the soul, no worship taking place, whatever happened on the level of the exterior, if there was mortal sin, for the essential of worship was not there. The external is the expression of worship, not its essence. The essence is on the level of the sacrifice of the will. Worship is an old word. It means worthship, the creature recognizing the authority of the Creator. And at that point it has to be, therefore, not in the mode of the enemy, who said, I will not serve, non serviam, but in the mode of the angels, who continually bow and adore, singing day and night, Hagios, Hagios, Hagios. Otherwise, in church we are saying, by our prayer and praise centered on the wrong area, how great I am. It's the same as in prayer. If prayer is output only, we are in charge. Listen, Lord, your servant is speaking. The same dynamic of nothingness, receptivity, passiveness, recognition applies to both prayer and worship. And here we find the problem that has come out in the disaster of misapplication of renewal, because precisely the interior was lacking. For the other is bound to go wrong if the interior is not in authentic worship mode. And what does worship mode mean? It presumes a priori that we are wanting to know the will of the one that we are worshipping. Concretely, we have more in our Catholic worship than any other. With regard, therefore, to the use of what we have, we are more in danger of presuming upon the mechanisms that will always work, and then become relaxed in the creation of an atmosphere. Compare that with our Protestant brethren, who only have the creation of an atmosphere, and they succeed. Charismatics also succeed quite well in creating a sustained, prolonged beauty of music. Where have we gone wrong? It would be good to make an examination of conscience. In the first reading from the book of Deuteronomy, today we have that reference to the fact that there is no other nation that has its God so close to it. A passage taken up by St. Thomas Aquinas, the great doctor of the real presence. But that presumes handling it, therefore, with the greatest possible awe and respect, under that presence's terms, not our own. It is interesting that in the succession of events at Akita in Japan, Sister Agnes was receiving Holy Communion, as was the practice already in her community, handmaidens of the Blessed Sacrament in the hand. Suddenly she wasn't allowed to physically. She was impeded by a miraculous force and given to understand by a message that she was directly given from heaven, that on the tongue was the preferred mode of heaven. Another curious event took place in Texas. A good priest was transferring the Blessed Sacrament into a pyx and therefore hanging it because he had to go to a person who was infirm. And in the dark car, he suddenly noticed that there were bright gleams of light coming from his fingers. He realized that little particles were over his hands, coming from handling the Blessed Sacrament, and those particles were defending themselves, indicating that each particle was truly the presence. From then on, he had to explain to his people that although the communion in the hand was authorized, he himself felt very uncomfortable about it and explained why. Recently, in India, a person was receiving Holy Communion in the hand, and it became visible flesh and blood. She has stopped since receiving it in the hand. What is all that telling us? If we want the fullness of grace in our celebration and in our Holy Communion, we need to do so under the terms of the one that we are honoring and even receiving. And when it comes to lay people without necessity handling the Blessed Sacrament, there's a question mark over that. We want people to participate, but it might be participating in human dynamics, not the divine. And God may be displeased, and we return there without realizing it to the state of that worship of which the Lord says, "This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me."